project we're making. Since I got a few responses on LinkedIn on the previous video I posted and got some other good tips and questions, and I just want to quickly go through how the project has been progressing since our discovery kickoff and what kind of techniques I used today. And I'll be focusing a little bit on how do you actually manage Basecamp compared to where you do your code. In our case, it's GitHub. So let's quickly go through some updates. So previously I talked about using the inbox, using individual to-do lists for project scopes, or as Ryan Singer describes them in ShapeUp, project slices, and then the discussions questions that we have. So the discussion questions thing is kind of resolved, or almost. A new thing popped up. So while doing development, I noticed, or I realized, hey, we need to get some answer about updating contract terms for plans. So I created a new discussion question to-do list and looped in Veronica, who's my designer on this project, with the question introduction, and she gave me a good response, so I can now factor her response into future development. So Veronica is on vacation for a week now, so I'll be the sole project person on this project for at least the next week. And since I have the development role in this project, I will just continue with my tasks on development, and then when Veronica gets back from vacation, she can pick up anything that I worked on. So let's go through. So I guess let's focus a little bit on how do you develop in a ShapeUp project, or at least how am I doing it in this project. As you noticed, I've been quite active in this to-do list. This to-do list is about the fundamentals for signing up for a plan with commitments terms. So I've been mainly focusing on this one because I wanted to discover and research how our current plan subscription code works, and see if I can already add a few things that I had in my mind in brainstorming and browsing through our current code base. So there are a bunch of things that were added previously already, which is, for example, currently we have a direct relationship between subscription and plan without any database model in between. So I thought already at the beginning, probably I want to create a new relationship model that will contain extra information about the contract or relation between a customer and the plan they are subscribed to. For example, if we're adding minimum commitment terms, someone needs to be committed for 12 months to a contract, or 6 months, that date or those date fields need to be stored somewhere. You can either put them just on the plan. You can also think ahead, maybe we need to customize that per subscriber, or when we update the plan in the future, the current subscribers need to stay on their current contract terms and new subscribers will get the new terms. So I wanted to think about adding a relationship between subscription and plan, and added to do for that to make that relation happen. So all these completed to-dos currently are completed, and how that works currently is that I created a feature branch, and sometimes you want to have a feature branch, sometimes you just want to go directly into master. But because I'm still a little bit in prototyping phase, I'm not sure yet if the code architecture that I'm working on now will actually be the final stuff. I don't want to have other people in the team already worry about that seemed like unfinished code, so that's why we created the feature branch, and I created a pull request on GitHub, and we add a little prefix feature for this. So I gone and work, I added some code, I added a bunch of commits, etc., for adding the standard fields for the subscription, for the imagined new models and fields for the subscription. So that's how I kicked off. So this pull request is not necessarily related to an individual to-do. It's more it combines a few to-dos that I wanted to kick off with to create a safe space in the code base for my new code architecture. And gradually I'm figuring out, hey, which things do I need to do in a new PR, which things can do directly in the feature branch, and are there any UI bits that I can already expose to Veronica to work on when she returns, and when she can also work on this feature branch. So let me quickly pause the video and kick off my development server so I can show you a little bit on what I did for already adding a few fields to the UI so Veronica can pick them up. All right, so I put it up my development server in the background to show you a little bit of our product around this feature. But just to introduce first, so there was a to-do add fields to the plan model on this slice that is about managing the plan. So because I am the developer here and I know that we are going to add some field to the plan model to configure that, and that Veronica needs to design those fields later, I already put in a very raw version of the new plan model fields. And as you can see here, this is like the plan management screen that we have, and this might seem a little bit off and ugly, and that is the case. This was like the original UI that we already had, and now I've chosen to just dump like a few fields with a few representations of the data model that will be in there. Like there is going to be a minimum commitment period and a unit, so either months, weeks, days, etc., and a grace cancellation period. And I already know these are at least some of the fields you already need. We might need more fields, like a toggle in terms of, hey, do we want to flip the minimum commitment period on and off instead of depending on the value that's in here? But that's still stuff to figure out. I know that this is at least the minimum set of fields that I need to, as a developer, fully test like the whole flow from someone signing up to setting the commitment term on plans and then continuing this description. So I want this to be here so I can easily test this feature in development, but this is also already a hint towards Veronica, so she can pick these up and make proper like UI and design around these, so we can continue the feature collaboratively. So I did this, I added the plan fields to the data model, I also like prototyped these fields in the UI, and these actually work. So it's not like fake UI, I actually hooked them up already to the data model. So these are already stored, but they don't do anything yet. So as soon as I implemented these fields, I went back to my own like fundamental signing up for a plan commitment terms slice, and I think there's a to-do here somewhere where I added, so from that to-do I created to-do update subscription creator assign plan with commitment term logic. So we have like a model, a class in our code base, which has a method assign plan, and I know, hey, in the sign up process, I need to make sure that this method is updated to use these new fields later. So I didn't do it yet, but I at least added a to-do for this one, so I know I can hook up these fields to it later. But the reason why I didn't yet is because during like the development in this feature and during creating all this code to like figure out the code and hook everything up, I realized, hey, we have some small issues in our current code base that I just noticed. So I, for example, noticed that unrelated to this feature, there was an issue that I would come across later, and that was about that we wouldn't trigger certain validations to an external text calculation service if a certain project setting wasn't set. So because I thought that was a bit more critical than continuing with my own to-dos, I actually made a fix for, like, I continued work in my feature branch. Let me show you the PR. It should be here somewhere. This is the feature branch. This is the actual PR. Yeah. So I created a new PR from the feature branch because I knew I was going to do some fundamental updates, and I wanted to take that out of the feature branch and make sure that the other devs in my team could really review this easy without being bothered with the rest of the feature. So I made some updates that I had already written to-dos for, but then I noticed, hey, we might have a broken texture validator. And because that was kind of out of my cycle project, I decided to write a different post on our engineers team, which is the generic engineers team where the developers keep each other informed of new ideas, but also these kinds of realizations and questions. And the reason why I pulled it out of the cycle project was because not all the developers are in the cycle project. And we try to keep joining projects to a minimum, otherwise you get the noise of all projects that are happening in the company, and that creates defocus on your current project. So I pulled this bit out into the engineers team. I presented the case and what I thought was broken. We had a little discussion about that, and while I posted this, I already started working on fixing this in our master branch. So you see here, this is an actual PR that fixes the issue I found into the master branch. And we also had some discussions on the code here. So mainly what you see is that we actual discussions about the code happen in pull requests on GitHub. And this is more like naming things or verifying architecture, and also keep each other informed of the changes. Actual feature discussions happen on Basecamp. So we're not going to discuss architecture or design much on pull requests. We try to keep that to a minimum because pull requests have, like the UI in GitHub is less suited for design changes, or at least for our opinion. Basecamp is much better for that. But actual code commenting with inline comments like these, and Joshua actually posted a few inline discussions because I'm like a manager coding, so I'm not up to date on all the Ruby and Rails like best practices anymore. But he posted some suggestions. I added his suggestions to my pull request, and then it was done. So this way I've pulled out a thing out of the cycle project and into a thing that we can discuss in the engineers team, and now I know that this is resolved. I can go back to my own project and continue with all the items again. So actually this to-do refactor put fixes for textjar validator into master, I can actually complete it now because the pull request of removing the project is basically done. I only need to merge it, but that's something I can just do now that it's gotten 2 positive reviews after some changes. And actually I finished this refactor too because that's included in this pull request. So now that I've cleaned up that loose end by taking it out of the engineers team, I can now go back into the project again. So that's how you see that not every to-do is like linked to one pull request or branch. I think in a later stage of the project you will have that relationship a bit more, because then the feature has gotten its initial shape, and then you really clearly see, hey, these are the gaps and these are the things that we can fill. But in this like first 1 or 2 weeks of the cycle, it's really hard to already make like the final choices from your code base. So then it makes more sense to combine multiple to-dos in one pull request, or even work on a pull request that doesn't finish any to-do, but it's more like a step towards it. One thing that I wanted to note is that once I added that initial PR for this feature, I informed Veronica, like, hey, I've started this pull request. I will be focusing on all the backend stuff, and once that's stabilized, we can either merge it into master behind a feature flag, or we can continue in the feature branch. So I listed some things that I was planning to do in this feature branch, and then Veronica told me, okay, that's cool. I'll be on vacation, so feel free to merge it in, and we can start collaborating on it later. So we've already always had this discussion in Firmhouse in the past. Do we like have a feature branch for the whole cycle, or do we try to merge small stuff in way frequently? Because in the past we've noticed that we had big feature branches to be merged into master, which either broke things or were really hard to review for the rest of the team. So we try to break it up as much as we can, but probably initially you need some kind of feature branch to at least get to the starting point. And once that merged into master after a feature behind a feature flag, we can like continue adding small components to improve it. So that's how I'm continuing now. And now that I've got some initial startup things out of the way, and I've done the exercise to like define our architecture a little bit and communicate with the team, I can actually start moving a few to-do lists into like more from figuring out to making it happen. So I'll do that now. This fundamentals is I think halfway through at this point. I've done some nice prototyping. I have in my mind how the architecture should look like, so I'm just going to write an update about this one. And plan settings is also a little bit, sorry, this is the wrong one. Plan settings can now also be dragged a little bit to, this is a little bit, yeah, I think it's good like this. This one needs to be dragged back. So made good progress on laying out the initial model and database. Fixed a minor broken in master, but text jar validation. Added rough UI for plan commitment field so that Veronica can continue again. Okay, so now I save this update. And now in the hill chart it starts becoming clear which slices are like moving forward and which slices are still way behind progress, because we still need to continue with them. Cool. So that's that. I hope you find this useful, and let me know if you have any questions.